Hi everyone, my name is Gary. Welcome back to Spirit Tech. Today is going to be a little different from the usual Spiritual Essentials series, where we cover things that are easily provable, that a lot of people are already doing, such as meditation and affirmations, which are very useful for those who are getting into spirituality for the first time, or those who are already practicing spirituality, want to go back to the basics, maybe refine their practice in some way, get more insight into the science behind the benefits. But today we're going to talk about an idea fundamental to many spiritual traditions, and it is one that has been debated by scientists and philosophers for a long time. And that is, what is primary, matter or consciousness? Can we really influence our external reality with our thoughts and intentions? Many of you, just like myself, may say, well, of course you can. And you will probably have a few stories of experiences in your life where you were able to manifest circumstances and people just by thinking about them, applying intent towards a goal. A so-called manifestation, as described in works such as The Secret or Reality Transurfing, which is a really nice book or a series of books I recommend reading. But regardless of that, if you are someone with a skeptical mind, those things, even very interesting experiences, no matter how much unlikely coincidences will happen, a part of you will still doubt and say, well, that was a coincidence, or it's just my imagination, or the things that have happened not because I manifested them in my mind, but because of my hard work. And of course it's partially true. You can't manifest reality just by sitting on the couch and not doing anything. But how important really is directed intent and creative imagination in terms of creating your external reality? Fortunately, there is a way to find out very directly if your consciousness alone, without the action, actually affects things in the physical world. And that is what we're going to cover today. I'm going to show you an experiment that you can easily perform yourself, because this channel is about practical spirituality. So I'm not going to give you anything where you have to take my word for it. Everything in this channel is going to be things that you can practically apply right after or during your watching the video, and start seeing the results either immediately or soon enough so that you don't have to question it. You just experience it directly. The experiment I'm going to talk about is designed to do just that. It is loosely based on the work of Masaru Emoto, who has conducted experiments with water, and many of you might have already heard about him. What he was doing is he had participants send intentions into the water, and then he would use a rapid freezing technique to freeze that water and analyze the snowflakes or water molecules. Pardon me for not researching it very thoroughly, but the research can be found online. So if you're curious, you can easily find exactly the methodology and you can view the results. The reason why I can't just refer you to the research and say, look, this works, you can look at the pictures of the snowflakes and see for yourself that the ones that bad things were projected into, they turned out kind of ugly and gross looking, and the ones that positive intent was projected into, they look very beautiful and shiny and sparkling. There's actually two reasons why this is not enough, especially for a skeptical mind. And one reason is because you only see it in pictures, and pictures can be fabricated, videos can be fabricated. And the other reason is because there is some speculation that Emoto might have cherry-picked the results. Out of many thousands, he picked the ones that confirm his narrative, which I don't know if that's true. Maybe, maybe not. But it doesn't really matter, because there's something you can do yourself and show to yourself once and for all whether or not your conscious intent affects reality. What you will need for the experiment is 2 jars of equal size and material. Make sure they have a lid or a cork so you can seal them for the duration of the experiment. Equal amounts of filtered water and uncooked rice. I'm using measuring cups and a kitchen scale just for the sake of accuracy, because I'm doing this for a video, so I want the experiment to be as pure as possible. But you don't have to follow me exactly. Just eyeballing the amounts is okay. Another thing to keep in mind is the storage conditions, because those have to be equal too. So temperature, humidity, and UV light have to be the same for both jars when you store them. I wouldn't recommend putting them side by side. For the purity of experiment, I recommend separating them somewhat, but keeping them in the same conditions in terms of, again, humidity, temperature, and light. And so what you do once your setup is ready and you have 2 jars with equal amounts of uncooked rice and water, I would say more water, less rice, but it's really up to you. And they are clearly and properly labeled. You can begin the experiment. I am running the experiment for 30 days, but you can start seeing the evidence much earlier than that, depending on humidity, temperature, and light, because those things affect the speed of decay. And so 30 days is a good number to make sure that results are visible, but you don't have to do it for that long. Now for the actual experiment, what you're going to do is once a day, you're going to take out one of the jars, and for a minute or so, you can set a timer. That's what I do. I set a timer for a minute. And so you do that, and If it's the jar labeled for negative intentions, thoughts, words, for 1 minute, you say negative things to the jar. You can either say them out loud, project them, you can say things directly to the jar, or you can find things that upset you at the moment and mentally give them to the jar. You can think of situations that you find upsetting and project them into the jar. The exact method, you can experiment and find out what works for you. But the most important thing is that for that minute, all the jar receives from you is negativity. Please try to avoid apologizing to the negative jar, at least until the end of experiment, because it will contaminate the experiment. Take a minute to reset, take a few deep breaths and reset your intention. Set the timer again for a minute, and this time take out the positively charged jar and then project loving thoughts into it, loving thoughts and intentions. And again, you can directly compliment the jar. You can think about things that you love, people that are close to you, your favorite activities, symbols that represent beauty and love and gratitude for you, like sunshine. Again, whatever works best for you. If you don't find yourself particularly creative and imaginative, you can just repeat over and over words like love, gratitude, beauty. Even that is going to be enough. What is supposed to happen, assuming mind does directly affect matter, is that the positive intention jar is supposed to remain clear and less decayed relative to the negative jar, while the negative jar should appear much more muddy and with a lot more mold and stuff swimming around in there. Even though I will be doing the experiment myself, I will be posting the process on my Instagram, which will be linked down below. So you will see pictures I take daily. And also 30 days from the release of this video, I will make another video which will be the final report, where I will show a slideshow composed out of the pictures I would take over the 30 days. And so you will see the final result and my final thoughts and conclusions. But that being said, I still encourage you to also do it yourself, because even if you watch my video and even if you trust me that there's no foul play, that I'm not mixing stuff into the water, you can't just take my word for it 100%. There's always going to be a kernel of doubt. But if you do it yourself and you experience it directly, and the expected result does happen, where you will see clear difference between the two jars, it is going to have a profound effect on you and your perception of reality and your thoughts and intentions. Hello everyone, and welcome to the debrief episode of S.A.G.E Network's Project 1, the Water Experiment. Does your mind have the power to reshape reality? 30 days ago, give or take, I set out to find the answer to this question. To that end, I designed an experiment based on the findings of Masaru Emoto. Admittedly, I was somewhat skeptical about Mr. Emoto's results. It is hard to believe, and especially for a skeptical mind, that your thoughts and intentions alone can affect the external reality in a direct way. I didn't have high hopes when I started the experiment, but I designed it with great rigor, making sure to leave no room for speculations and accidents. And what I found has challenged my views of reality. Let me first briefly recap the setup of the experiment. It is very simple and designed to be replicated by anyone who's interested, because even though I did it myself and I had everything documented, there's always room for doubt unless you directly experience the whole process. So I made sure that the experiment can be replicated easily in any household using basic household items and ingredients. I had 2 jars or vials of the same size and material, and equal measures of clean water and rice. I used uncooked rice because it's easier to measure and less messy to work with. But I do know that some people performed a similar experiment with cooked rice and have claimed to see significant results. What I did next is I combined the ingredients, meaning the water and the rice, inside the jars. I closed them up and labeled them, one for negative intentions and one for positive ones. Next, I made sure to arrange storage locations in such a way that both jars are receiving the same amount of light and are stored in the same conditions in terms of temperature and humidity, but are far away apart from each other so that they're not affecting each other energetically, just in case that's a factor. For the next 30 days, I would take both jars one at a time out of their storage, and for 1 minute, with a timer, I would project positive intentions into one jar and negative intentions into the other. In retrospect, I did not have to go for 30 days, but that is what I pledged in the initial video, and that's what I ended up doing. However, I started seeing significant results much earlier than that. So if the duration scares you off, you don't have to worry, because even if you do it for 15 days or even less, that's still enough time for the experiment to work. So 2 minutes a day for 15 days is not a big commitment, but the results have potentially big repercussions for how you perceive reality, your role in it, and the significance of your thoughts, intentions, words, and actions. What I found is, the further I went into the experiment, the more difficult it became to project the negative intentions into the negative jar. As I was seeing the results and I was seeing the impact of my words and thoughts in a very physical and visceral way, which in turn, of course, made me pay more attention to how I think and feel, talk and behave in general. If you commit to the experiment, it is important to remember to not apologize to the negative jar, because that would contaminate the experiment. You can do so after the experiment is concluded, but do be aware of this potential difficulty. Another thing is, you won't always be in a mood for the positive or the negative projections, in which case, just saying words that you associate with either negative or positive intentions is enough. Even repeating the same 1, 2, or 3 words, like love, healing, beauty, harmony for the positive one, and fear, hatred, sickness for the negative one. And if you felt any frustration during the day, This is something you can actually leverage for the experiment as well by projecting your frustrations into the negative jar. And in that case, it can work similarly to the visualization exercises where you take your negative experiences or frustrations from the day and project them into an imaginary treasure chest or tie them to imaginary helium balloons and release them into the universe. There's many variations of this exercise, and I will be making an episode about it in my Spiritual Essentials series. But going back to the subject at hand, you don't have to stick to a specific structure in terms of how you project your intentions. It can be words, thoughts, emotions. It can be a combination, and it can be different things on different days, depending on what works best in the moment. As I promised in the initial video, I have been taking pictures of the jars each day for the 30 days. And I believe I already teased you enough, so I'm going to go ahead and show you the results. Now, you might have noticed that I'm not the best photographer and I don't have the best, most consistent setup. On top of that, at some point by the end of the experiment, it became more and more difficult to see the difference between the two jars. And that part is on me, because at the beginning of the experiment, I started off by shaking the jars each time, so that any residue becomes more visible. In retrospect, I realized that it was a mistake, because that way you couldn't really appreciate how dramatic the difference was. And once I realized that this approach was a mistake, I couldn't go back and start taking pictures of the jars without shaking them, for the sake of consistency. At least not for the purpose of the slideshow. What I did do, in order to show you how dramatic the difference really was, I took this picture, and I don't know if it's the lighting or what else, maybe just my imagination, but the rice and the water in the positive jar is almost glowing, and honestly, I was pretty amazed. And to further show you that I am using the same jars and I didn't mix anything or there's no foul play involved, I created this following time-lapse video where I shook up the jars and then I just let them sit for 7 hours, which is as long as my phone's memory allowed me to film. Which is kind of a shame, because I did want to go for longer. But even with that, you can already tell by the end of the time-lapse that the positive jar became much clearer and the negative one remained muddy. I have the two jars with me here right now, and you can see how much difference there is between them. And when I shake them, if you look closely, you will notice that the rice in the negative jar takes longer to fall back to the bottom than the positive one. So this is what happens now when I shake the two jars, which is very interesting because it's different from what was happening initially. And full disclosure, it's already been more than 30 days since the end of the experiment, a few days more, and the conditions in the jars have changed. Not so much the negative one, it's still as muddy as it was, maybe even muddier, but the positive jar developed some interesting features, all kinds of stuff swimming around. And it never gets completely muddy, even after I shake it multiple times. It looks almost like something is binding the rice together. What I would really love to do is have somewhere to analyze the water. And so if you have a lab, you're in contact with someone who has access to a lab or appropriate equipment that you think might help with the analysis, or you have the knowledge that you can share with me, so maybe I could do it from home. Any way you can help, please reach out either in the comments or the Discord group, which will be linked in the description, and I'll be happy to hear from you and take this experiment even further. It is one thing to contemplate concepts such as affirmations, manifestation, the power of thoughts and words, telepathy, and everything connected to the power of thoughts and intentions influencing the external reality. It's another thing to witness them so directly. Running this experiment made me more enthusiastic about my daily practices such as meditation and my daily affirmations. It gave me more motivation to stay present and grounded in the moment and take care about my self-image and pay attention to the clarity of my goals. The implication of this experiment go beyond simple curiosity and even beyond personal growth. This experiment and many other similar ones that are being conducted around the world as we speak will have no choice but to profoundly affect our understanding of the world, science, and philosophy. And my hope is it will motivate us to think more deeply about our place in the universe and make us more patient, introspective, and careful with how we treat each other and the world around us. If we see each for ourselves from our personal experience that our intentions do affect reality, it will force us to be more responsible and careful with our thoughts, words, and actions. But on the other hand, it will also open exciting avenues for improving our health, inspiring creativity, and giving us more hope and clarity in the pursuit of our goals. As amazing and profound the implications are, I am just one person performing the experiment in front of a camera, and so if you are someone like me with a skeptical mind watching this video, the effect on you wouldn't be as profound as if you tried it for yourself. So I encourage you to try that, because that's the only way to know for sure. And the more people do that, the more consistent the results are, the more paradigm shifting the concept becomes. And no matter how rigorously I tried to set up the experiment to make sure that it's reliable and no factors are introduced that would muddy the results, there's always room for improvement. For example, one could use multiple jars, let's say 3 for positive and 3 for negative intentions. Because with just one jar of each, there is a small chance of a coincidence. What if one of them was contaminated with some kind of bacteria that the other one wasn't? Even though I made sure that they are both cleaned and cleansed before the experiment. But to eliminate the possibility completely, it is better to have multiple jars of each. And maybe a control group, which is just sitting there with no intentions spoken to it. And so I invite you to poke more holes in my method, but if you do so, I hope that you also perform the experiment yourself. Because it's very easy to criticize others' work while not doing the work yourself. So I really hope that you wouldn't do that, or if you do want to provide criticism but for some reason you cannot perform the experiment yourself, at least be as constructive as possible, and I will appreciate that too. And if you decide to go ahead and do the experiment, please share the results either in the comments or on my Discord or wherever else you want to do that. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it made you think and perhaps you discovered something new. I'm looking forward to see what the viewers can come up with in their own experiments, whether you use the exact same setup or you improve upon it. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And with that, thank you for watching. Please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel to see more experiments like this, hands-on, practical, and hopefully paradigm-changing, as well as videos in my Spiritual Essentials series, where I talk about practical spirituality tools that are already proven to be useful, such as meditation, breath work, or gratitude, the topic of the last episode that I've posted. Check out the links in the description for my website, Discord, and other ways to support me or engage with me more. And I'll see you again. Good luck.